George Blake, who died on the 26th of December, aged 98, was a spy for Britain's MI6, who famously betrayed his country and worked as a double agent for the Soviet Union. The story of his life, career, and escape to the Soviet Union was every bit as remarkable as any spy novel. Blake was born as George Behar in Rotterdam on the 11th of November 1922. His father was an Egyptian Sephardic Jew and his mother was Dutch. His comfortable existence in the Netherlands was interrupted by his father's death in 1936, whereupon he was sent to live with a wealthy aunt in Cairo. There, he became close to one of his cousins, a committed communist, who, Blake remembered, had a great influence on him. By the time World War II broke out, he had returned to the Netherlands. Blake possessed British citizenship via his father's service in the British Army, and was therefore interned by the Nazis, though he managed to conceal his Jewish heritage. The occupiers released him since he was under 18, but he joined the Dutch resistance as a courier. In 1942, he escaped from the Netherlands and travelled to Britain via Spain and Gibraltar, reaching London in January 1943. By this time, the family had officially changed their surname to Blake. Blake joined the Royal Navy as a sub-lieutenant before being recruited by the Secret Intelligence Service, a forerunner of MI6, in 1944. In 1946, he was posted to Hamburg and put in charge of the interrogation of German U-boat captains. In 1947, the Navy sent Blake to study languages, including Russian, at Downing College, Cambridge. He was then posted to the British legation in Seoul, South Korea. Under cover as a vice consul, Blake's mission was to gather intelligence on Communist North Korea, Communist China, and the Soviet Far East. The outbreak of the Korean War in 1950 was the turning point in Blake's life. Seoul was captured by the advancing North Korean forces. Blake and the other British diplomats were taken prisoner. As the tide of the war turned, Blake and the others were taken north to Pyongyang. After seeing the bombing of North Korea and reading the works of Karl Marx and others during his 3-year detention, he became a communist. Blake arranged a secret meeting with his captors and volunteered to work for the Soviet spy service, the MGB. When asked if there was any one thing that prompted his turning to communists, he said, "It was the relentless bombing of small Korean villages by enormous American flying fortresses. Women and children and old people, because the young men were in the army. We might have been victims ourselves. It made me feel ashamed of belonging to these overpowering, technically superior countries, fighting against what seemed to me defenseless people. I felt I was on the wrong side, that it would be better for humanity if the communist system prevailed, that it would put an end to war." Released in 1953, he returned to the UK with the rest of the detainees and was greeted as a hero. He married in 1954. Then in 1955, he was sent by MI6 to work as a case officer in Berlin, where his task was to recruit Soviet officers as double agents. Instead, he informed his KGB contacts of the details of British and American operations, including Operation Gold, in which a tunnel into East Berlin was used to tap telephone lines used by the Soviet military. Soviet capture of the tunnel did not occur until a year later, so as to protect Blake. There's lots more to come in this video, but please consider liking, subscribing to the channel, and sharing. And please consider supporting my work with a PayPal donation. The link is in the description. Thank you. In the following 9-year period, Blake is thought to have betrayed up to 40 MI6 agents. all but destroying the organization's operations in Eastern Europe. Blake later said, "I don't know what I handed over because it was so much." In 1959, Blake became aware of a CIA mole inside the GRU and played a part in exposing Peter Popoff, who was executed in 1960. By 1961, Blake had fallen under suspicion after allegations by a number of defectors. Summoned from Lebanon, where he had been enrolled at the Middle East Center for Arabic Studies, he was arrested and interrogated. 3 days in, he slipped up and admitted working for the other side. He then gave a full confession. The maximum term for Blake's offences was 14 years, but prosecutors divided his crimes into 3 separate counts. His trial was held in secret at the Old Bailey. He was found guilty and sentenced to 42 years, the longest sentence, excluding life terms, ever handed down by a British court. Blake was regarded as a model prisoner in Wormwood Scrubs, but all the time he was secretly planning an escape, with the help of 3 men he had met in jail. Sean Burke, a petty criminal from Limerick in Ireland, and 2 anti-nuclear campaigners, Michael Randall and Pat Pottle. The escape was masterminded by Burke, with financial and logistical support from the others. The 3 had struck up a friendship with Blake while in prison, and believed the lengthy sentence he received was unjust. It was later revealed that film director Tony Richardson, who won an Academy Award in 1964 for Best Director for the film Tom Jones, contributed financially to the plot. The conspirators were in contact via a walkie-talkie that had been smuggled into the prison. On the 22nd of October 1966, while most of the other inmates and guards were at the weekly film showing, Blake broke a cell block window and climbed through it. Sliding down a porch, he ran to the perimeter wall, where Burke had thrown a rope ladder over it. Scaling a wall, the prisoner was driven away to a safe house. The plan worked like a charm. Blake then spent several days moving between Randall and Pottle's friends' houses, including that of Reverend John Papworth in Earl's Court. After waiting until the heat had died down, they smuggled Blake across the channel in a camper van, driving through Northern Europe and crossing into East Germany without incident. From there, the KGB took him to Moscow. Randall and Pottle were not prosecuted until 1991, when they were acquitted by a jury. Burke was never brought before a court. At the time, the Republic of Ireland had no extradition for so-called political offences. Divorced in absentia by his wife in 1966, Blake married again in the Soviet Union. In 1990, he attempted to write an autobiography, but an advance in royalties were seized by the British government. In various interviews, he remained committed to Marxism-Leninism. He also denied being a traitor, stating in 2012, "To betray, first you have to belong. I never belonged." When he died on the 26th of December 2020, tributes included words like legendary. Vladimir Putin, an ex-KGB agent himself, sent his deep condolences to Blake's family. He said, "Colonel Blake was a brilliant professional of special vitality and courage." With his passing, there is now almost no one of significance left who fought the Cold War. But as tensions have risen between West and East again, it may not be too long before a new generation will be fighting Cold War II, if they aren't already.